Hello everyone. Today we'll be looking at the pharma industry outlook. This is produced by the students from Modul University, Dubai. My name is Sarthak Sharma, and we have Aalim Aslam.
My name is Aalim, and along with the rest of our group, we've created this presentation. This is a collaboration with Spark 44, and the purpose of this is to just give them a brief idea of what the pharma industry is all about and how they can analyze the future trends to market the pharma industry effectively in the future. So without much further ado, let's just get right into it. We'll be going along with the introduction first.
So pharma industry is a key industry in the global economic system. Many people rely on it. So the current status of the pharma industry is that it's still growing.
Yes, so ever since its inception, the pharma industry has continued to grow, and the future forecasts also are predicted to continue to grow with the increasing demand from the consumer side. The role of Spark 44 is to market the pharma industry in a very positive manner, because people still have their misconceptions and they do have their negative image about the industry and the companies within the industry. So we just want to analyze the industry itself, look at the past and current and future trends to see how they can be advertised effectively. Next, we'll be looking at the top 3 pharma companies of the industry, and we'll be starting out with Pfizer. What we want to do now is just look at their internal and external evaluation and see how they compare with other competitors.
So for Pfizer, the internal factor evaluation, the main strengths that they have is the big pile of cash. They have huge amounts of resource, as well as strong sales force, so the sales, they have high sales.
As for their weaknesses, Pfizer is already too big to grow organically, so they have to rely on being capital intensive. Another thing is there no potential for new blockbuster drugs. We'll get into blockbuster drugs later on in the presentation. And lastly, they have a lot of internal politics, which makes work very slow and harder to get by. Next, we'll be looking at the EFE, which is the external factor evaluation matrix for Pfizer. This will be looking at their opportunities and threats. Their main opportunity is technology advancement. As with any other industry, technology plays a big role in the pharma industry, and this would be one of the key opportunities, as they can tap into the technological advancements to further improve their position in the market.
So for the threats, they have a higher effective tax rate. So in many parts of the world, the tax rates are high for pharma products. Patent litigation settlements, pharma industry, they have to be aware of the litigation procedures. Additionally, development of blockbuster drugs by competitors, which we'll look more into later on.
Lastly, we'll be looking at the CPM. This basically looks at the critical success factors, and it compares how each company is performing within each of them. If you look at the total overall score, you can notice that Pfizer is performing the worst between the 3 companies, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is the worst. This just means that within each factor, they're not able to utilize their strengths effectively. Next, we'll be going straight into Roche, the second biggest company in the pharma industry, and we'll be looking at their IFE. So we're going to start off with their strength. Roche's biggest strength is their efficient management. So their efficient management system, the way they work, the way they do things within the company makes them very efficient, very effective, and very productive. So that is their biggest strength that they can utilize.
So for the weakness, the major weakness that they have is the less promotional and advertisement materials that they have in their marketing process, which could be a limitation in their case.
Yeah. Next, we'll look at their EFA, which is external factor evaluation. For Roche, their biggest opportunity is the fact that they're ranked among the top 5 in the pharmaceutical companies in the world. They're working on rare diseases, so diseases that other companies may not be looking at, they're working on it. Lastly, another thing is 66 new molecules in pipeline, which means they're continuously evolving and introducing new drugs. So this is their top 3 strengths.
In terms of the threats, the greatest threats that they have is the R&D, because it is a very cost intensive, and also it may require huge procedures and government clarification.
Lastly, again, just as we did with Pfizer, this is the CPM to see how it compares with other competitors in the industry. In this case, Roche is performing much better than its industry competition, which is a good sign for them. Lastly, we'll be looking at the third company, which is Johnson & Johnson. This is their internal factor evaluation, where we look at their strength. The number one strength for Johnson & Johnson is their significant sales and their marketing capability, which means that their sales revenue is high due to their effective advertisement strategies. Also, they have a robust financial position, which means they have enough resources, enough capital to carry out their work, their marketing, and their processes effectively. One of their internal weaknesses, the main one, is their theft and countering drugs from internal staff. This means that they have a lot of potential security breaches within the company, and this makes it harder for them to earn revenue as their secrets are being spilled. Next, we'll be looking at the EFE, which is the external factor evaluation. One of the biggest opportunities for Johnson & Johnson is the addition of Crucell or other drugs. This is done to reposition themselves, and through this, they're also able to enter new markets such as the biologics and the vaccines. Their biggest threat would be the strong competition from generic markets. So this is not only for Johnson & Johnson, this can be applied to every other company in the pharma industry, because once patents expire, generic companies are able to produce generic products for a fraction of the price.
So here we have the CPM of Johnson & Johnson, and when we look at the overall industry average, we see Johnson & Johnson is performing better than its competitor Pfizer. So this is an advantage for Johnson & Johnson.
Okay, so this was just a brief overlook of the industry and the top 3 companies within the industry. And now we're going to look at the current and future challenges that are being faced by companies in the industry. So here we'll be looking at the factors that cause the pharma companies to change their strategies, change their ways, and implement new ideas to overcome the obstacles.
So there are many different challenges currently being faced by pharma industry, but we'll be focusing on top 3. The first one is expiring patents. So after the patents expire, the novelty of the drugs is lost, which means that it is available for other producers to basically manufacture. Additionally, the patent duration is shorter for pharma drugs. And there's also an increase in generic products, meaning there's higher competition from them. And ultimately, it all leads to loss of sales and growth.
Next is the increase in competition. As we mentioned, the pharma industry continues to grow, as well as the competition within the industry. This means that there's a high number of competing firms that sell the same products, the same services, and this makes it better for the consumers because they have more choice, but it makes it harder for the firms to establish their place in the market. The increasing demand from the customer side means that there's a division of market share as each firm tries to acquire that market share. There are a lot of market barriers, not only to enter the market, but also to stay and exit the market, so this makes it also harder. Last thing that the competition must keep in mind is the technological forces. In order to be up to date, they have to keep in. Last thing that they have to keep in mind is the technological forces. Each pharma company must stay up to date with the latest technology to make sure they're ahead in the race for the pharma industry.
Finally, costs and regulations. Pharma industry, they incur a lot of different costs. First of all, is the R&D cost. They need to continuously develop new products to sustain their competitive advantage. Patents are another cost that they must incur. Policies and framework, they come from government institutions as well as various regulators regarding the drugs. Finally, they're also susceptible to social, economic, and political factors, meaning social groups or economic conditions and political factors may affect the sales of drugs or possibly limit the overall production of drugs.
As we know, healthcare is a service to different market segments in different parts of the world, and each part of the world has their own rules and regulations which the company must adapt to. So not only does this increase the cost, but it also takes up a lot of valuable time from the company while they adhere to all the rules of each country. Okay, now into our second focus area, we'll be looking at our latest and future trends of the pharma industry.
So this is very important, especially for Spark 44, as they want to adapt to the current conditions and market accordingly. So the main trends are healthcare budget, demand in emerging markets, innovative medicines, increased regulations, drug pricing concerns, blockbuster drugs, novel innovations. So healthcare budget will be experiencing some changes in the future as the demands for different drugs and rare diseases changes. Additionally, emerging markets are key. 3, 2, 1. Additionally, demand in emerging markets is a key growth area for pharma industry, especially countries like China, India, Indonesia, where there's a large population. Innovative medicines are being produced, especially when there's increased technology. being implemented into drugs.
Next thing is increased regulations, which means that it's getting harder and harder for new drugs to be approved with the new policies, the laws, and the rules that companies have to adhere to. This also relates to the drug pricing concerns, where a lot of money is going into the research and development of the drugs and the patents, where the drugs, instead of becoming cheaper, are becoming more expensive, while consumers are opting to go for generic products. So for the top companies in the pharma industry, this is causing a huge problem, and this will need to be addressed. Next point is blockbuster drugs. These are one-off drugs, one of a kind. They're very special, that have a special place in the market itself. These are very hard to replicate, and generic companies are unable to successfully replicate these drugs, which is why we believe that blockbuster drugs are the future of the pharma industry, especially for the top pharma companies, where they can effectively utilize their costs to make a drug that they know they can keep with themselves.
Additionally, they need to be aware of new innovation that is coming up, and because it impacts the trends of many of the human-related lifestyle. So any new technology or any new scientific development will affect how drugs are administered and how medicines and the healthcare lifestyle is provided to the customer.
Yeah. So the role of Spark 44 in this would be to analyze these trends and choose their clientele very specifically. They can make sure to choose a company that is adhering to these trends, that is taking them into consideration, and also adapting to these trends. So they don't want to go with a company that is still stuck in the past. They want to look at the future.
So it is very important to look at the future scenarios and ideas to have a long-term growth potential. So we have to first assess the various investment opportunities that are available in the coming years. We have to focus on the emerging markets. Additionally, there are various demographic trends and social trends like aging population that pharma industry can utilize, and also there are increases in healthcare issues. For example, antibiotics resistance. So based on this, we have developed different ideas to cater to those needs. The first idea is Druber, or Dr. Uber. So basically, Dr. Uber is an application or a ride-sharing service where it is available for emergency services, healthcare emergency services, for anyone. It can be accessed through an application, and it is also helping the government by relieving their strain on the ambulance transportation system. Additionally, all the information regarding the the commuter's health is available on the screen, and if anything is required, or if any attention is required, the driver is also registered and trained to give him or her advice.
Yes, and it's more than just a taxi, it's like a personal ambulance service. So not only, as my colleague mentioned, is it beneficial for the customer, but also for the government if they're unable to keep up with the demand for the emergency services. Next, we have the WMed store. We've all heard of WebMD, which is a website which gives you the symptoms and diagnosis for diseases. We decided to take it one step further, where we develop an app where not only do you get to read about your symptoms, diagnosis, but you also get to do something about it. So WMed store, what it does is aims to give you a solution, and it aims to give you medicine or proper treatments that you can do. So through this application or website, you can not only buy medicine for yourself, but you can also compare the prices of the medicine, see how many substitutes there are, and actually look at the ingredients that come with each medicine. So this will be providing you with all the information you need before actually going through with the treatment.
Yeah. Additionally, the application will be updated with your prescription, so you'll know when to take your medicines accordingly. Finally, what we are thinking is that all the applications will come together to create a super application such as Druber, WMed Store, and other integration of other applications to create a super application that will benefit the customer's lifestyle.
Yeah. So as Apple has Siri, we want WMed Store to be kind of like a personal nurse for you that will always care about your health.
So it's very important that Spark 44 is able to realize these new trends and possible inventions, that they could partner with different big pharma companies who have the resources to implement these new inventions. So pharma is an industry with great implications. There are many prospects also there are uncertainties.
Yes. First point, as we can see here, is awareness. All of us need healthcare. All of us require the services of the pharma industry. But then again, we don't have a proper image. We tend to have a negative image of not only the industry itself, but of the companies, where we think all they care about is money. So what we aim to do here is change the perception of the consumers and show them the real image of the companies. What Spark 44 can do is market it in a way where the truth is coming out, where they can see that the pharma industry's main focus is to benefit the world. Next is growth. As we've seen before, the pharma industry has experienced exponential growth, and it continues to grow even more, with new companies coming into the market, with new drugs being researched and developed.
Overall, they're looking at stability in the long run. So currently there are many issues being faced by the pharma industry, including economic and political factors. So stability is very important for the industry to maintain continuous growth, as well as earn stable revenue to continuously develop R&D processes and new drugs to not only help themselves but also help humanity.
So this has been our presentation about the pharma industry outlook, and we hope that it has provided you with useful information, and especially for Spark 44, where they can utilize this information to further market or choose their clientele better. Any last words?
Thank you.